dive into the philosophy. Ooh, what happened? Was it not recording? Oh, that's weird. Um, yeah, so over to you, Rebecca, if you'd love to chant this beautiful mantra for us.
Harmony. So I'll just do the first, maybe the first three, yeah?
Yeah.
It's the Vedic style, which is a little bit different. I call it more medicinal. There are only three, um, what do you call it? Three tones to it in a way. Um, and the Gayatri mantra has different, um, also different sections where it adds to it, adds, it's always the same words, but they develop and it gets faster. But I'll just do the first three, otherwise it will get a bit too long. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I said to Harmony, I chanted this all through lockdown because it really is about. I think last time you talked about it being you know, the light and illuminating, focusing on the light. But it's also another explanation which I loved was it's the mantra is a request to the sun to dispel the darkness of ignorance and provide clarity and strength. And I really love that, just imagining that, you know, any day, but of course, especially during that time of lockdown. All righty, so let's all get into our chairs, take a deep breath, and just let it wash over you. And with that in mind. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Om Tatsavituhu Saviturvarenyam Bhargaha Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi 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 Yo Yaha Yonaha na prachodayat prachodayatiti prachodayat. Om tat savitu savitu tat tat savituhu savitur varenyam varenyagum savitu savitur varenyam varenyam bargo varenyam bargaha Devasya Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Devasya Dhimahi Dio ya yo no yo na prachodayano na prachodayat prachodayatiti prachodayat.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It was such an honor to have you chant for us. It was absolutely beautiful. I hope that resonated with everyone's heart. I know Mel's got a little heart up there. She's sitting there in her bikinis. I love it. Emma, so beautiful. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
For letting me share.
Thank you. And now this mantra is a mantra of illumination for the mind. So great before our study. And it, yeah, brings a new essence or a new clarity for success. And our wonderful Helena will be chanting this one for us, and then we'll get into our content. Helena, you're on mute, darling. Thank you.
So I will kindly ask you to again put your hands together in front of your heart. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushpivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukyamrutam Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushpivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukyamrutam Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushpivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukyamrutam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Done.
Thank you so much, Helena. So beautiful. You ladies, really appreciate you both. Thank you. Okay, hopefully everyone's feeling nice and clear in their minds and they're ready to absorb all of the wisdom that Ayurveda has to offer us. And so I think it is a nice starting point to start here with like the goals of Ayurveda and the true purpose of Ayurveda. It goes far beyond just the physical health, as you can all see and you know. At its core, it really is a system of wisdom that's designed to support us living a meaningful and purposeful life. So first, it does aim to maintain health, not just to treat disease. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit different from our traditional, well, not traditional, I should say, more of our Western allopathic view of the healthcare system. And they both absolutely have their place. So I don't like to sort of pour rain on our allopathic healthcare system, but we do go that extra bit deeper and not just thinking about treating disease, but really sustaining, maintaining, and improving health, and prevention being our key. When we understand our unique constitution that Jasmine just went over with us, we can really live in harmony with our nature and with the nature around us, the environment, and health becomes our natural state. And then the next goal is it works to eliminate disease when it does arise. So not only are we looking at the health, but yeah, we can help treat disease. And we do this not by just addressing the symptoms, but treating the root cause. So whether they're physical, emotional, or energetic or spiritual, Ayurveda has tools and wisdom to be able to get to the root of those symptoms. And finally, it sees health as a foundation for spiritual growth. And I think I explained last time, like the three sciences, there's yoga, Ayurveda, and Jyotish. And when they are used together, apparently you get to moksha, liberation, quickly, right? But the goal of all of them is really just to get to that liberation, that moksha, that enlightenment. And this is part of that spiritual growth aspect. A balanced body and mind, it allows us to pursue higher goals like self-realization, like the enlightenment and the moksha. And in this way, Ayurveda supports both our earthly life and our spiritual evolution. So we've broken down the word before, and I think that's what we need to do to really understand Ayurveda, is to understand the word itself. And we know that it's a Sanskrit word. It's made up of two parts, Ayas and Veda. Ayas meaning life, but it's not just physical existence. It's a rich term that includes several layers. So the first layer of this, what we call life, is anubandha, which refers to the aspect of life which continues even after death. It transmitigates from one body to the next, and this is the eternal, unchanging part of us. It also means jivita, and that is what gives us our vitality. It keeps us alive in the present moment. And Dari,
Harmony, can I interrupt? We can't see the slides, I don't think. I can't see the slides. The slides aren't showing up.
Really? Can
I
you
can
guys
see them. I can see them.
I can see them.
You might not be able to see them because you're in the you've signed in the academy. We're both in the academy account. Sorry. Sorry. You're gonna have to just read along your slides. Anyway, back to it. So where were we? Dari, it's the force that holds the body together, protecting it from decay and disintegration. So in Ayurveda, life isn't just biology, it's a combination of body, mind, senses, and soul. And then we have the word Veda, which means knowledge or science. So Ayurveda being the science of life, it's a complete body of wisdom that teaches us how to live in balance, maintaining our health and realize our full potential. And that's why the core of the Ayurveda Alchemist is our higher self methodology, because your full potential is you becoming and stepping into your higher self. And Ayurveda can absolutely get you there. Another word that I want to share with you as practitioners, as consultants, which we really need to sort of understand, is the word svasthaya. And it's a really profound word in Ayurveda. It often gets translated just to health, but sva means self, and stha means established, steady, or rooted in. So svastha literally means established in self, not just physical health, but firmly rooted in our true nature. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. We talk about the two selves, right? So the capital S self is our higher nature, our higher self, the soul, the unchanging consciousness that witnesses all. And the small self is our ego, the personality that we form in this world, our mental patterns and identity that we navigate daily within life. Ayurveda teaches that true health happens when both are in harmony, when our ego, our small self, has positive self-esteem and is aligned with our higher self, our spiritual essence. So as a human living in this world, we don't want to get rid of our small self. We can't. We physically, mentally, emotionally can't. It serves a purpose. But in this system, health isn't just about, digestion or the doshas. It's really knowing who you are on that deepest level. So both of those selves and living from that place. Now, this is a beautiful verse from the Charaka Samhita, and it outlines the 3 root causes of disease according to Ayurveda. We did speak about this last time, so I'd love to get a little interactive with you guys so you're not just listening to me, verbally going at it. Who can remember the 3 root causes of disease according to Ayurveda? You can pop it in the chat or you can unmic yourself and yell it out. No? Anyone? Okay. So, Charaka says that the unwholesome conjunction of the sense organs with their objects, intellectual blasphemy, and transformation, these are the 3 causes of disease. Proper utilization of the object's action and time is beneficial to the maintenance of normal health. So first, if we look at this and we break this down, we have the unwholesome conjunction of the senses with their objects. So what does this mean? This is what we spoke about last week, is misusing our senses. So overindulging, underusing, or improperly engaging with sight, sounds, taste, and so on. For example, like if you're scrolling endlessly through the phone or eating food that isn't suited to our body, it can create dis-ease because it is overstimulation or misuse of the senses. Now, the second one, remember we spoke about intellectual blasphemy, or the way that we worded it last week was assault on like our wisdom and our intelligence, right? So not really using that. It's when we act against our inner wisdom. And we know that something might be good for us, but we don't do that. And instead we do things that aren't so supportive for our health, like staying up really late, eating crappy food, even holding on to resentment, like looking at those emotions that, yeah, we need to move through and we need to process, but does it serve us to hold on to those? No, it does not. And this disconnects us from our inner intelligence. And this can be a major source of imbalance in our mind and our body. And then the third one is transformation, but that is referring to the natural effects of time, aging, seasonal changes, and life transitions. So these aren't inherently bad, but when we resist or misalign with them, they can lead to disease. But Charaka doesn't stop there. He also gives us the antidote that the proper utilization of objects, actions, and time. So when we live in harmony with our senses, we act according to our wisdom and honor the rhythms of time, health naturally follows. Do we have any questions? Are we all on board with that? Does that all make sense? Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So let's look at the 3 causes of disease. We're going to sort of break it down even further. And the first major cause of disease in Ayurveda that we spoke of, and I can never pronounce this one very well, is Astmendriyafa Samyoga. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but it is very insightful at the same time. So Asatmaya means something that's improper or unsuitable. So an unhealthy habit or action. Indriya are our sense organs, so our sight, our hearing, our touch, our taste, and our smell. And artha means the object of the senses. So what we see, what we hear, what we're actually tasting. And samyoga means the combining of contact between them. So this refers to the misuse or improper contact between the senses and their object. So what would that look like? Someone give me an example of what that could look like. Misuse of the senses in some way. I gave one not long ago.
Maybe thinking that, people are talking about you in a bad way.
Yep, definitely. That can be one. Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Hayley, for jumping in. Yes. So what it can look like is it can look like overuse of screen time, or overuse of loud music. So that's overuse of the eyes. As Hayley said, maybe it's like letting improper information go in through your senses, through your ears as well. Underuse might be not engaging our senses fully. So it could be like staying indoors with no sunlight or nature exposure. So we're not really using our sense. We're not like opening our eyes to the sunlight, we're not allowing the skin to feel the cool air wisp across it. So we're not really using and engaging much of our senses if we're just sort of sitting at home in a little dark corner, are we? And then wrong use of the senses could be maybe watching really violent content on TV. It could be eating food that's not right for the body. It could be ignoring the beautiful things that uplift you. Yeah. And when our senses become out of balance, our nervous system, our digestion, and our mental state will suffer, leading to dis-ease in the mind and body. And what Ayurveda teaches us is that our senses consciously and appropriately to you know, if we use them in a conscious way, an appropriate way, so hearing the right things and uplifting ourselves and, you know, eating the right things and observing the right things, then that's going to help us maintain balance and health. Now, the second cause of disease that we touched on last week was the failure of the intellect. This, when we break it down, so if we look at the word, prajna means inner wisdom, our intuitive intelligence. It's the quiet voice that knows what's right for us. So if we're not listening to that, then we're insulting our own intelligence. Aparada means offense or transgression. So when we know better, we can choose better. It's not usually the lack of knowledge, it's the disconnection from our own wisdom and choosing against that. We know perhaps that staying up late disrupts our health, but we just do it anyway because we're really engaged in this true crime, you know, that we're watching. And so we're assaulting our senses as well as assaulting our intellect, right? We know that certain foods will upset our digestion, but we just keep eating them anyway. And that's fine. Like, you know, like Jasmine said, Ayurveda is not about perfection, but it's just knowing when we do those things, there's going to be a consequence. And another example would be when we know that we need rest or we need to put in these emotional boundaries, but we just keep ignoring the signs because it's too hard to maybe put in boundaries at the start. It means a tough conversation, right? And so we ignore our wisdom, our intellect, and then there's more of a consequence for ignoring our intellect. This misalignment between knowing and doing creates that inner conflict, which can manifest as physical and mental imbalance. We know when we've experienced the stress of not listening to our intuition and our wisdom, we can have headaches, we can get sore shoulders, neck pain, stomach cramps, all of the things. Then we can obviously get a scattered brain, we can get a lot of brain fog. It shows up in so many different ways depending on our individual constitution and our the way that we have misused the senses or distrusted our own intellect. And again, Ayurveda, it doesn't see this as it doesn't see this as like you know bad, like you're not following the Ayurvedic principles. It sees it as moral failure and as spiritual forgetting, but we can also grow and we learn from it. It's a sign we've become disconnected from our deeper self, and healing begins when we reconnect with the wisdom and act in alignment with it. Again, nothing's right or wrong, but it's understanding that it can lead to dis-ease or it can lead to harmony. And so this slide here brings everything together that we've just explored, summarizing the Ayurvedic view of how disease truly begins. So it starts at the most subtle level. We forget our true nature, that we are spirit, consciousness, not just a body or a personality. And then this forgetting pulls us out of alignment with the self, with the capital S. Then we get caught in the dramas of life, emotions, stress, distractions, and the mind begins to move restlessly. The impact of time and change when we're not centered also occurs. And then as the mind becomes unsettled, this intellect fails, where we make choices that go against our inner wisdom. And then in that confused state, we begin to misuse our senses. We overstimulate, we ignore, and we just, you know, misuse them in general. This sensory misuse doesn't just stay in the mind, it impacts the doshas of the body. So it can create imbalances in our vata, pitta, or kapha. And over time, this imbalance will lead to disease. So in Ayurveda, disease, it doesn't start in the body. It starts with disconnection from self. And so then what is healing? How could we
Reconnection.
summarize? Thank you, Pam. Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yay. Healing
Right.
then. No, that's perfect. It's the journey of remembering who we are and realigning with our mind, senses, and actions with that truth. So exactly what Pam said, it is reconnection to self. And one of the most beautiful origin stories of Ayurveda, it begins with the Congress of the Rishis. And we did briefly speak about this last lesson. So did we go through the whole, we went through a story of the Rishis, but in ancient times, the Rishis, or the great seers and sages, they gathered because they witnessed widespread suffering. People were becoming sick, they were becoming disconnected and lost. I mean, I feel like that could be these days as well. But back then, the Rishis asked a really good question, because we know that the questions we ask ourselves will determine the quality of our life. And these Rishis, these smart people, said, why do people fall ill? And how can we help them? And so in this sacred meeting, they recognized that the cause of disease were no longer just physical. They were rooted in forgetting the self, in emotional and a spiritual imbalance. They understood that a deeper science of life was needed, not just for the body, but for the soul. So among them, the best and most devoted rishi, Bharadvaja, was chosen to seek out Lord Indra, the celestial being who held the divine knowledge of life and healing. And in this meeting, or this congress, it marks the beginning of Ayurveda as a complete system. So not invented, but received as sacred knowledge, passed down from divine to humanity through the rishis out of compassion for all beings. And it reminds us that Ayurveda isn't just science, it's a gift of grace rooted in service and sacred intention. And that's why the work that you beautiful ladies are doing within the Ayurveda Alchemist is so important. Because as I mentioned, I feel like what the rishis were seeing all those years ago, we're re-seeing again today. And this work is needed like now more than ever. Now, mythology. It's really important to understand that mythology in this tradition isn't meant to be viewed as a rigid religious belief, okay? Mythology is a symbolic language. It's a way of expressing deeper truths about the universe, the body, the spirit. In Charaka Samhita, which is one of the texts, the origins of Ayurveda are described through a rich and beautiful mythological lineage. And it all begins with Brahma, whom is the creator, who first held the knowledge of Ayurveda in his divine mind. And from Brahma, the wisdom was passed down through celestial beings. So we have Daksha Prajapati, the father of Pravati, which is the consort of Lord Shiva. He was among the early holders of this knowledge. And then came along Aswini Kumas, the twin divine physicians who cared for the gods, symbolizing the healing power of balance and duality. There was Indra, who was the ruler of the gods and father of Arjuna. And he was the next to receive this sacred science. And Indra, in this beautiful mythology, represents divine authority and cosmic order. From the heavens, the knowledge descended to earth through Bharadvaja, the first human rishi to receive it directly from Indra. And then he passed it on to a lineage of great sages, including Atriya, who became a wonderful and well-known teacher. Atreya's most brilliant student, Agnivesa, compiled the teachers into a foundational text called the Anivesa Tantra. And later, this work was refined and expanded by Charaka, whose name we honor in the Charaka Samhita, which is the text that we have been speaking largely about in this program so far. And it's one of the most important classical texts of Ayurveda that's available today. This mythological lineage reminds us, oh, Helena's holding it up. Oh, you're in my studio. Yeah, I've got the whole lot of them. All of the volumes down there. So Helena just held the text, one of the texts up because it's a series of texts. But this lineage, it reminds us that Ayurveda is both divine and deeply human. Yeah. It's a tradition that is born of compassion, and it's meant to bridge the heaven and the earth in service of healing. And that's what this mythology is showing you. So it's sent from the divine, right? And then it got passed down through to these sages, these sages who have then shared their wisdom with us. And we're now here to share this wisdom on with our clients, with our family, with our friends. But I want to say not with anyone who will listen, because you never want to, Ayurveda, it meets people where they're at. And so a lot of people are called to Ayurveda at the right time. We don't want to be those people that are, going out there and bombarding someone else's senses, right? We want to do it with understanding and compassion that who needs this will get this, and we're here to provide that. Okay, so as we have spoken about the Charaka Samhita, there may be a question of who actually is or what was Traka. And there are two ways of understanding Traka. The first one is as an individual sage, and some traditions do identify Chakra as a specific physician or a scholar who edited the earlier Agnivesa Tantra and was a student of Atreya. So there is belief that this is who Traka is. But there's also a thought that it is a representative of a name. So many scholars believe that Traka may refer more broadly to a school or lineage of thought within Ayurveda, a collective identity of sages who compiled, preserved, and expanded upon Ayurveda's original teachings. And this is the lineage I was taught through. So I'd love to hear from any of you who have learned Ayurveda in the past and done a deep dive. Were you taught that Charaka was a sage or was a school and lineage? Helena, what's your understanding of Charaka?
I learned that as you, like that it was a school, and this school has compiled, has put everything together in a form of a book. So that was what helped the knowledge to come to our time.
Yeah, same. What about you, Jasmine?
So we looked at both of the concepts like we're looking at here. So like we really don't know. We do know the wisdom is there. A lot of the buildings and the libraries were burnt down during wars and things like that. So we lost some of the wisdom of this, but not necessarily the wisdom, but some of the lineage part. So we don't really know for sure. But either which way, it's a collection of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, the Chakra Samhita, it includes a diverse viewpoint and layers of the philosophy and the development of the philosophy of Ayurveda. It was then further edited by another sage centuries later, the actual text, indicating that it was a living text refined across time. So what the text that we have now has been refined over time. Is this a new slide, guys? Yes, it is. You can see it. Okay, good. Okay, so while Charaka Samhita traces the roots of Ayurveda through Atreya and Bharadvaja, the Sushruta Samhita, which is another text, it offers a different origin story. And this one is more centered on surgery and practical healing. And I must admit, when I first started studying Ayurveda, I was really drawn to Sushruta Samhita text for some reason. Like, I don't know if I was like intrigued in the aspects of the surgery part, having a nursing background, but I was really sort of drawn to this lineage and this knowledge as well. And so in this tradition, the knowledge of Ayurveda was again held by Lord Indra, the celestial king of gods. To bring this wisdom to earth, Indra passed it on to King Devadatta of Kashi, which is a remarkable being believed to be an incarnation of Lord Dhanvantari. And remember who Lord Dhanvantari is, guys? We spoke of him last week. Anyone? Someone tell me. He's very important to know. He's the man. He's the divine physician and God of healing. So, you know, when we do the Dhanvantari chants, we're, you know, opening up the healing for this Ayurvedic wisdom. But going back to Devadatta, he wasn't just a king, he was also a teacher of medicine. And among his most devoted students was Sushruta. He was a seeker driven by compassion and the desire to alleviate suffering, like all of these wonderful rishis. But Sushruta approached the king not for power or prestige, but to learn the science of life and surgery, to understand the human body and how to heal it when all else fails. This lineage, so this new lineage, gave rise to the Sushruta Samhita. And it is one of Ayurveda's most authoritative texts on surgery and anatomy, which I think is what really drew me, because I love to really understand the human body on so many levels. And it really offers precise knowledge of the different surgical tools and procedures that they used, including leeches that we spoke about last time. That was one of the tools that they did use to suck the blood. And it even spoke of what we now would call plastic surgery, but it's about sort of supporting the body in being able to put it back together after different traumas. So again, when we look at these different origins of Ayurveda, we realize, well, it really encompasses everything. It's not only spiritual and philosophical, but it really is deeply practical. It's born from the need to serve and heal the suffering world in so many different forms. And so these are the two great lineages of Ayurveda. And so what is the difference between the two lineages. So the Charaka Samhita, it really focuses on internal medicine, which we call Chaya Chikitsa. It's based on the student of Atraya. It's refined and compiled text, and it, as we mentioned, refined by different sages along the way. It emphasizes holistic health, mind, body balance, and lifestyle. And it was later it was expanded upon. And then the Sushruta Samhita, its focus is more on the anatomy and the surgery. Its teachings were from King Devadasa, an incarnation of Dhanvantari, the Lord of Ayurveda. And Sushruta was the foremost student of Devadasa, and it describes surgical instruments, procedures, anatomy, trauma care. It integrates spiritual, practical, and physical healing through hands-on medicine. So these are the two main lineages that support Ayurveda as we know it today. And to another, so we just spoke of those two lineages. And we have touched on this, one of the origin stories of Ayurveda in the last lectures. We spoke of the churning of the ocean. And I just want to sort of dive into that again, because remember we looked at the symbols of what it represented. And so when we're looking at philosophy and mythology of Ayurveda, it begins with, you know, these beautiful stories that give us these teachings. And this specific story of Ayurveda, it begins with a curse. The great sage, Durvasa, gives a garland to Indra, the king of the gods. Indra, distracted and arrogant, he disrespects the gift, and Durvasa curses him. As a result, the devas lose their power, and the asuras, the demons, they begin to defeat them, throwing the cosmos into imbalance. In desperation, Indra seeks the help of Lord Vishnu, who tells him that to restore divine strength, the devas must obtain Amrit, the nectar of immortality, hidden deep in the cosmic ocean. But the ocean can only be churned with cooperation between the devas and the asuras. They use Mount Mandara as the churning rod and Vasuki, the serpent, as the rope. This symbolizes the effort needed between opposites, light and dark, ego and soul, to extract the essence of life. And from this churning emerges many treasures. And finally, Lord Dhanvantari, the divine physician, rises from the ocean holding the pot of Amrit, the nectar that brings health, vitality, and immortality. To protect the Amrit from falling into the hands of the Asuras, Lord Vishnu takes the form of Mohini, a divine enchantress, and cleverly distributes it only to the devas. So again, what does this story teach us? The story teaches us that Ayurveda, the science of life, is divine nectar, born from cosmic cooperation and accessed only through humility, balance, and aligned with Dharma. And so Dhanvantari becomes the deity of Ayurveda, symbolizing that healing is not just a science, it's a sacred gift. And now this gift is in your hands. as the new emerging Ayurvedic consultants and practitioner of this modern world. And why we go through the philosophy and mythology is so you truly understand why Ayurveda comes from. Like, what is it? And of course, when someone on the street asks you, what is Ayurveda? You're not going to go through all of the mythology because it, is so much. But and when you speak what it is in a sentence or two, this wisdom comes through that, because it's so much more than just physical, mental, spiritual health. It's so much more. Helena.
Just quickly saying that people ask us about what is Ayurveda, and we usually, to make it simpler, we answer that it's a holistic science. But now everyone can see that it's much more than that. It's the oldest medical science in the humanity. And when it comes to these main books, Charak and Sushruta Samhitas, that now are considered books or scriptures, we are talking about the 1,000-year-old scripture. So it has at least 4,000 years old. And in this book that we can read nowadays, they already talk about, maybe using other words, but virus, bacteria, the whole anatomy without having any kind of exam like X-ray or ultrasound, nothing, but everything is explained in these books. That's what it's amazing, why it's amazing. So nothing to have as science to prove that kind of things, the biochemistry of herbs and everything, but they already knew that, and it's all explained in this book. The process of the disease, the anatomy, and how to treat every imbalance. So that's why it's amazing, in my opinion.
Thank you. Absolutely. And so, again, we're going to talk about Lord Dharvantari, so that next time I ask you guys, hey, who's Lord Dharvantari? There's no silence. You guys will be like, I know. So Dharvantari is seen as a symbol of the ideal physician, right? He's compassionate, wise, skillful, and divinely guided. He is believed to be the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, who descended to earth to bring the knowledge of healing to humanity. So Lord Dharvantari, he is typically, like if you see him in pictures or in stories, he's usually holding a conch, symbolizing the primordial sound and purity. Chakra or discus. So chakra, like, when we talk about the chakras in the body, they're discs, they're wheels, that's what they are, but also there's a physical chakra. And it's representing sharp intellect and the power to cut through ignorance or disease. He'll also sometimes have a leech, so symbolizing traditional surgical and bloodletting practices. And of course, the pot of Amrit, the nectar of immortality, symbolizing the ultimate healing power. Dharvantari is especially revered in the surgical tradition of Ayurveda and is often invoked by practitioners before treatment of surgery as a reminder that true healing comes through alignment with the divine. And we spoke of and sung or chanted, I should say, the mantra for Lord Dharvantari last week. And this is really, when we translate it, or the reason we chant it, is to honor this Lord Dharvantari, the divine form of Vishnu who brings healing and light. So it's a way that sound resonance can be absorbed into our cells to allow the healer in us to bring healing and light. And so by remembering Lord Dharvantari, we root our healing work in sacred intention, not just technical skills, but in service to the wholeness of life. Ayurveda, it doesn't just teach through facts. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it, because it teaches through symbols and stories. And I learn a lot through stories. I'm a real like hands-on learner as well. But when you can sort of Ayurveda is brought to life, I feel, through stories and through the mythology and through the philosophy, which integrate these symbols, and they hold really powerful insights into the healing journey of the mind, body, and soul. So if we explore some of the symbols behind the churning of the oceans, that origin stories and its elements, the gods really represent our higher potential, our higher self, our inner wisdom, our compassion, and our spiritual nature. The demons, they symbolize our ego, the force of attachment, fear, and ignorance that can pull us away from balance. And the snake, they were churning with the snake. It represents time and sensory pleasure. When not handled mindfully, it can burn us with desire or haste. And the ocean, it's our consciousness. It's vast, it's deep, it's filled with hidden treasures like intuition, healing, and self-awareness. The mountain, Mandara, is concentration. It's a steady anchor around which our efforts revolve, keeping us grounded in purpose, in our dharma. We mentioned last week when we spoke of this story, the tortoise as well, and that the symbolization of the tortoise is it represents the ability to withdraw the senses, to go inward and support transformation without getting overwhelmed. And this is the practice of pratyahara. Each part of the story reflects the inner churning we all go through. And we know through this wisdom that healing, it's not refined to fixing our body. It's about transforming the self, working through the ego, the time, guided by awareness, concentration, until we uncover the Amrit, our own innate wisdom and vitality. And it isn't just ancient. Ayurveda has evolved through time, shaped by cultural, spiritual, and political changes in India's long, long history. There's so much to it. And my teacher always taught me that in the Vedas, the last few pages were blank, and they were blank for a reason. And that's because Ayurveda is the science of life. It evolves. It's lifelong learning. It's rooted in this ancient history. But those blank pages represent the new emerging science and wisdom that new practitioners and new scholars of this beautiful tradition are going to bring to the world, are going to share with their clients, their students. And if we look at the timeline, we can see how ancient this is. So pre 15,000 BC, this is the time of the Vedas, the oldest sacred text of India that we spoke of. It's Ayurveda's earliest roots. And then around the 1500 BC, we enter the time of Krishna, which is an era that reflects the blossoming of those spiritual teachings and Dharmic philosophy that deeply influence Ayurvedic thought. By 1000 BCE, we see the emergence of India's great epic texts, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And these stories embody Ayurvedic themes of dharma, balance, and the struggle between higher and lower selves. And then from 300 BCE to 650 BCE, Buddhism really flourished across India. And Buddhist values of compassion, mindfulness, and their medicine deeply enriched Ayurvedic practices as well, especially in the areas of the surgery and the hospital systems. At around 1000 CE, so when Christ existed, Ayurveda began to decline due to repeated Muslim invasion, which disrupted the educational centers and led to the suppression of many indigenous sciences. And then in the 1800s, during British civil colonization, Ayurveda was further marginalized, and it was considered unscientific by Western standards and systematically excluded from formal education, because prior to that, Ayurveda was formal education. But then in 1947, with India's independence, Ayurveda re-emerged with pride. The post-independence era, it really sparked a revival with renewed efforts to preserve and institutionalize and integrate Ayurveda into modern healthcare. And we can thank that era because it's brought Ayurveda back to the forefront of health, what we are teaching and learning today. Now, this timeline that we just went through, it really reminds us that Ayurveda, it's not static. It is a living tradition. It's resilient, it's adaptable, and it's continuously offering its wisdom to the world despite changes. And there have been many disruptions over the thousands of years, but it is truly time tested, and it's still here with us today, and it will never go away. So our last few moments together, we're just going to look at the history through literature. And as we mentioned many, many times, like Ayurveda is deeply embedded in the spiritual and philosophical literature of the time. So we begin with the oldest Vedas, the oldest known writings dating back to around 3000 BC, before Christ existed. So we've got the Rig Veda, which includes the hymns and the mantras related to the cosmic order. And then we have the Atharva Veda, which contains the earliest reference to healing rituals, to herbs and mantras, forming the foundation of Ayurvedic thoughts. And then we have the Yajura and the Sama Vedas, which focus more on rituals and chants, but also contribute to the spiritual context of health. Between 500 and 15,000 BCE, we see the rise of the Brahmanas, the Puranas, and the Upanishads. And these texts expand on ritual, cosmology, and deep spiritual philosophy. Now, remember I was speaking about, Jyotish astrology being one of the three sciences. So this is what we're talking about as well when we say cosmology. Now, the Upanishads in particular, they explore the concept of the self, Atman, the self with the capital S, which is a central Ayurvedic view of holistic health. And then from 700 to 1000 BCE, we encounter the great epics of the Mahabharata, including the Bhagavad Gita, guys, which teaches profound lessons on dharma, karma, and inner balance. So we can see that these texts, they illustrate the moral and psychological dimensions of health, reminding us that Ayurveda is not just about treating the body, but living in harmony with our purpose and higher nature. And together, these lineage shows that Ayurveda, it didn't appear in isolation. It emerged from this deep evolution through spiritual culture rooted in sacred texts that still guide us today. Has anyone got any of the original texts of Ayurveda? Yeah, no, Jasmine, you got a whole lot of them. Yeah, beautiful. So another core text in Ayurveda is the Brihat Triya, or the Great Trilogy. So Brihat means huge or vast, and Triya means walking in three paths. So it refers to the three foundational texts that guide Ayurvedic thought and practices. So we've spoken about these ones, guys. Chakra Samhita. So this is one of the main texts of the trilogy. Then we have the Sushruta Samhita, which we spoke of, and then the Ashtanga Hridayam. So these are the three great texts of Ayurveda. You can get these on Amazon that have been translated. There are some dodgy ones, but there are some really good ones as well. And then we have, alongside the Brihat Triya, it also recognizes a group of important but more specialized texts known as the Laghu Triya, which means lesser or lighter triad. So the Laghu means light or concise, and Triya again means three paths. So these texts are considered supplemental texts, so they expand on areas but not as deeply covered by the Brihat Triya. Okay. And so our final slide today, the modern history of Ayurveda is a story of resilience. So how this ancient science survived through political upheaval, cultural shifts, and colonization, and still found its way back into modern practices. I find that so fascinating and so beautiful. And to me, it just shows how true Ayurveda is. It started around the modern Ayurveda, starting around 1000 CE. India experienced, as we spoke of, this wave of Muslim invasion that lasted into the 1800s. And so during this time, many Ayurvedic institutions were disrupted or completely destroyed. However, this period also led to the emergence of systems like Siddha in South India and Unani medicine, which developed under Islamic influence and integrated some Ayurvedic principles. And then in the 1800s come the British invasion and colonization. It was Ayurveda again then was dismissed and excluded, as I mentioned, from all formal education. And that's where the Western biomedical medicine became dominant. And many indigenous healing systems were suppressed or seen as like witch medicine even. And we spoke of the independence of India in the 1947. And this is really when the reopening of Ayurvedic schools happened. And this is what we call modern Ayurveda, where it came back for us. And it's supported by the formation of the Central Council of Indian Medicine, which helps standardized Ayurvedic education and the licenses of Ayurvedic education, what is now taught today. And interestingly, while these schools brought Ayurveda back into mainstream education, they adopted a largely allopathic model of teaching. So really emphasizing modern diagnosis, pharmacology, and hospital-based care, and sometimes at the expense of the Ayurvedic philosophy. And so I think it's so important to honor the ancient and traditional roots of Ayurveda, which is why we open this course with philosophy. Because today, Ayurveda, it stands at a really unique crossroads. It is being revived and globally appreciated, yet still seeks a fully it still seeks to be fully reclaimed in its holistic roots while coexisting with modern medical systems. And those holistic roots are the philosophy, is the mythology, is the psychology, is all of this spiritual practice, all of this beautiful understanding of what Ayurveda is beyond the physical aspects it can serve in us. So thank you, beautiful people. That is today's lesson. Next week, we will start here lesson 2 of philosophy. Hope you all enjoyed it. If there's anything you would like to share, have anything to say?
I'd
I'm
love
just
to close, if that's okay, with a little chant. Can you hear me? Just to Lord Danvantri. And this is something that often I begin class with, but it's very, very simple. And I encourage you all to learn it. It's just 3 little words that it goes like this. So just centering yourself, and we'll close today. Om Danvantra Mataye Namaha. Om Danvantra Mataye Namaha. Om Danvantra Mataye Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you, Harmony. Beautiful.
thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. This will be uploaded in the portal if you want to watch back, and the slides are there for you to read as well. Thank you.
Harmony, can I just share something?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So everything that we've just covered is quite extraordinary. If, like, I've had Ayurveda now for 13 years as in a relationship with it, which is quite extraordinary. And it has taught, Ayurveda itself has taught me everything that you're teaching us, if that makes sense. So if you kind of surrender to the wisdom and have faith in where Ayurveda comes from, which is from divinity, that it actually opens our hearts and our minds and teaches us everything we need to know. And of course, then we have to go and study, because that study is a part of it. But the spiritual aspect and the heart aspect and the care and the devotion and the compassion is what I would suggest at its core is the greatest gift to humanity, because that's exactly what's missing right now is lifestyle. We're all suffering from our lifestyle. We're all suffering from our choices. We're all suffering, and all of us are, we're constantly having to go, okay, so that and that. And I look back on my life and where I'm at now, and I look at my physical body, and I look at my heart, and I look at my mind, and I look at what's going on with my body, and how that is such an expression of the fear and the anxiety and the turning away from self, which obviously was a part of my path, to then be able to turn back with such devotion, with a choice to surrender so wholeheartedly to systems that are from heaven, are from God. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Thank you. You've actually got tears welling up in my eyes, and I feel all the feels, the goosebumps.
So for
beautifully
anyone that's at the beginning of their journey with this, I think the best piece of advice would be just to breathe and feel it. It's meant to come in through our senses. And yes, we have to study, and yes, we have to learn, but we know it. We know this. Our intelligence knows this. Every cell in our body knows this. So I think that the balance between surrender and trust and faith and study and learning, mainly self, like just look at self, apply everything to self and learn from there. So thank you so much for this incredible, I mean, your first course was amazing, Harmony, right? But this one is like, whoa!
We're leveling up, baby. We're bringing you back to the practitioner side.
Yeah, and I'm shaking. Like I'm just allowing myself to express from my heart what Ayurveda means to me, and how Ayurveda has taught me so much, and how it is yoga, Ayurveda, astrology, all of it is a direct connection back to God, whatever you call God, right? that's its purpose, and
I
it's
think also
true.
just like the Traka Samhita, like, you know, it was compiled by all these wonderful sages in the lineage that, you know, I learned from, and it became this beautiful, amazing text, like the king of texts in Ayurveda. And, you know, you said, yeah, the course was amazing, and this is full of so much new insights. And I honestly believe it's because I'm bringing my wisdom from my lineage. We've got the beautiful Jasmine. She's bringing all of her wisdom from it, you know, her aspects of Ayurveda. The wonderful Helena is bringing all of her wisdom. We had the beautiful Mel bringing all of her wisdom when we were creating this, because, you know, you guys know we've been creating this for so long behind the scenes. Like, this is a long time in the making to come here. And I think it is when we all bring our wisdom together. And now, Susie, even you contributing your beautiful wisdom and heartfelt words on this call, that has you know resonated, and that has given power to the energy of this group as well. And so that's what's so beautiful about building this community in the depths of Ayurveda, is that it's not just any one of us that is providing this information. It's coming through all of us, and that's what I love.
Yeah, beautiful. You could imagine we're sitting around a fireplace meditating like sages, but we're on Zoom, you know,
we're
and it's all
modern sages.
we're modern sages, and it's all coming down through us, and it's collectively uploading as Akashic knowledge. So beautiful, so
Amazing.
beautiful.
And then just before we go, because I'm just catching up on the messages in the chat, and Helena's also said the conch also means like the power of sand healing, a mantra, which is why we're bringing that into our classes as well. And the snake embodies the dual nature of poison and cure. Remember, nothing is beneficial for everyone. The same substance can heal or harm depending on dosage, context, and constitution. It's interesting that even the modern medicine uses the snake as its main symbol. So that's beautiful. Thank you everyone so much for being here. I truly love when you all show up live. I can feel your energy no matter where you are in the world. Namaste.
Thank you.